Hello, my spooky friends, and welcome back, or welcome to my channel. I am so happy to see you today, as today I have another true crime ASMR video for you to enjoy. Today we will be covering the case of Gisèle Pelicot. Gisèle is a French woman who was covertly drugged and raped by her husband Dominique Pelicot on numerous occasions over a 9-year period between 2011 and 2020. Dominique also invited dozens of men that he contacted through a website to rape her while she was unconscious, mostly in the couple's home in Mcain. Gisèle was unaware of these actions until 2020. So, that is today's case. I would like to also remind you, before we go forward, to be mindful of yourself. The following content does include mentions of rape. If this is a triggering topic for you, I suggest going to a different video that is more safe for you. I will, as always, be adding this video to my True Crime ASMR series playlist, and this is where you can find past and future videos in this series. If you enjoy true crime in an ASMR format, I highly suggest popping over to my channel. I am a lover of true crime, spooky cinema, decor, and books. If these are some of your interests, please come join our spooky community. So, let's get in to today's case. Born on December 7th, 1952, in the city of Villingen in the southern part of West Germany, Gisèle Pelicot is the daughter of a French soldier. She arrived in France when she was 5, and her mother died of cancer when she was 9. In 1971, she met her future husband, Dominique Pelicot. They married in April 1973 and settled in the Paris suburbs of Villiers-sur-Marne. I'm trying. They would go on to have a son, David, and a daughter, Caroline. They would later have Florian, who was born in 1986. Gisèle had a career in administration for the state electricity company. Dominic worked as an electrician and an estate agent, and set up a number of businesses which ultimately failed. Gisèle had a 3-year affair with a colleague in the mid-1980s. When Dominic discovered the affair, he moved in with another woman for several months before the couple were reconciled and resumed their life together. Following his eventual arrest in 2020, Dominic was linked to attacks on women in the 1990s. He admitted to an attack on a young estate agent in 1999, but denied the rape and murder of another young estate agent in 1991. In 2001, the couple divorced for financial reasons. They, however, continued to live together and would remarry in 2007. I apologize. In 2010, Dominic was caught upskirting women in a supermarket near Paris and accepted a fine of 100 euros to avoid a court case. Gisèle remained unaware of the incident. On retirement in 2013, the Pelicots moved to Mcain in southeastern France, renting a house with a garden and a swimming pool. Gisèle joined a choir, while her husband joined the tennis club and did a lot of cycling. In the summer holidays, they were joined by their children and grandchildren. For years, Dominic appeared a devoted husband. After the couple retired to the southern town of Mcain in 2013, and Gisèle fell inexplicably ill. She was losing weight, her hair was falling out. She randomly experienced significant lapses in her memory, which she called blackouts or total blackouts. It was Dominic who took her to see various doctors. Gisèle states that she was persuaded that she had the beginnings of Alzheimer's or a brain tumor. But now her symptoms appear to be the result of a crushed sleeping pill that Dominic had been slipping into her food and drinks. At trial, Dominic's brother, a physician named Gisèle Pelicot, testified to writing Gisèle a prescription for the psychoactive Temesta, which is lorazepam in the US. And this was all because she suffered from bouts of anxiety and had trouble sleeping. Dominic evidently secured a Temesta prescription for himself as well. And when he wanted to knock out his wife, began dosing her with as many as 3 to 10 tablets in a day. France 24 reports that by the time he was arrested, Dominic had been prescribed almost 780 Temesta pills. Joelle would state that to understand the origin of all this, we would had to think of the unimaginable, explaining how doctors could have missed the signs that something sinister was going on and failed to consider chemical submission as a possibility. Joelle would add that you only find what you look for, and you only look for what you know. He would then state that Dominic was a great manipulator and a liar, even from childhood. But because he was the little brother, Joelle explained, the family gave him a pass. When Gisèle became unconscious, investigators say Dominic invited strangers into their home to join him in raping her. According to the AFP, he found these men via a forum called Without Her Knowledge, which is now on the defunct website coco.gg, which had reportedly been involved in tens of thousands of police investigations before French authorities shut it down in June. Beginning around 2011, Dominic is believed to have orchestrated more than 200 rapes this way, enlisting more than 90 men. He allegedly obligated these men to follow certain rules. They had to speak quietly, and to avoid arousing suspicion, they could not wear cologne or show up smelling like tobacco smoke. Clothes were to be removed in the kitchen, and hands to be warmed before entering the bedroom. In court, Dominic again admitted to the premeditated assaults, his lawyer stating that after his arrest, he always declared himself guilty. He said, "I put her to sleep, I offered her, and I filmed." He reportedly told police that he started drugging his wife so that he could make her wear clothes and do things she wouldn't while awake, and said he never took money from the men he invited to rape her. Gisèle, referring to her husband now only as Monsieur Pelicot, described it differently. She said, "I was sacrificed on the altar of vice. They regarded me like a rag doll, like a garbage bag." For her, the most accurate words to describe her husband's crimes is torture. In 2020, a security guard at a grocery store caught Dominic attempting to upskirt several women, allegations that led to his arrest. The case snowballed from there. On the devices investigators confiscated from Dominic, they found 300 photographs and video footage of men sexually assaulting an incapacitated woman, which would later be revealed as none other than Dominic's wife, Gisèle. The count eventually rose to 20,000. Rounding off Dominic's damning digital footprint, officers also discovered meticulous records of the assault, the messages he had sent to his recruits, in which he boasted of drugging his wife. Per the Times, and he solicited strangers' participation. Dominic had also organized his photos in a folder on his computer labeled Abuse, adding dates and file names to most of the footage, but other women featured in his accounts, too. He kept a folder entitled Around My Daughter Naked, which contained collages of her similarly incapacitated and nude. She wrote a memoir about her father's crimes, Et Gisèle Pelicot. I tried. This was published in 2022, and she wrote it under the pen name Caroline Darian. Dominique had also taken surreptitious. He took really bad pictures of his daughters-in-laws naked without their knowledge or consent. We'll just say it. When police summoned Gisèle to the precinct, she had first defended her husband as a great guy. Then they showed her his archives. Gisèle describes this moment as when everything collapsed. These were scenes of barbarity and of rape. Gisèle left the police station, packed all that was left, and she states it as she collected everything of hers, of 50 years of life with him, into 2 suitcases and filed for divorce from her husband. Subsequent testing revealed she had multiple sexually transmitted infections. She would later testify stating that she no longer had an identity. I don't know if I'll ever rebuild myself, she states. She has since changed her surname, but is using Pelicot at trial. In addition to Dominique, the 50 men police had identified stood accused of having raped Gisèle. A second defendant's box had to be built in the courtroom to contain them all. The suspects ranged in age from 26 and 74 and worked as journalists, plumbers, nurses, IT consultants, truck drivers, and more. Many stated that they had no idea Gisèle had been drugged and that Dominique had tricked them, promising a threesome with his wife who was merely pretending to be asleep. Others said they thought she was a consenting participant. Gisèle did not buy it, telling the court they knew exactly what they were doing and what shape I was in. She even recognized one of the men accused of raping her, a neighbor who'd visited their home to talk about cycling with her husband, or so she believed. She stated, "I saw him now and then in the bakery. I would say hello. I never thought he'd come to rape me." Most of the defendants were charged with aggravated rape. One, according to the Times, was accused of having replicated Dominique's methods on his own wife and inviting other men, including Dominique, to assault her while she was unconscious. As mentioned, Dominique was also accused of taking unsolicited photographs of his daughter and his daughter-in-laws, and was also found guilty on violation of privacy charges for those. In court, Darian recalled the moment she first saw her father's photos, in which she lay in bed, ostensibly asleep. She stated, and Darian is Caroline, by the way, "I realized right away that I was drugged in that photo," she would testify. While Dominic has not been charged with drugging and abusing his daughter, he denies ever physically violating her. She cannot escape her suspicions, calling her father the greatest sexual predator of the last 20 years. She stated this in court. In addition to the charges pertaining to his family members, Dominic is also under investigation for 2 sex crimes that occurred in the 1990s. According to the Times, the rape and murder of a 23-year-old in 1991, which of course he denies, and the attempted rape of another 19-year-old in 1999, to which he has admitted. Both victims were real estate agents, as was Dominic, at least for part of his working life. In early October, it was reported that France's cold case squad had identified Dominic as a potential suspect in 5 other crimes: rapes, assaults, and 1 murder, which was perpetrated against female estate agents between 1991 and 2004. The investigations reportedly surprised Dominic's lawyer and are ongoing. It's possible Dominic could land back in court for these at a later date. Originally, Dominic was slated to testify during the trial's second week, but a kidney infection with several concurrent ailments delayed his testimony until September 17th. When he finally addressed the court, he once again admitted his guilt. Dominic claimed that his supposed sex addictions was too strong for him to give up the scheme. But he also expressed remorse, stating, "She did not deserve this. I regret what I did and ask for forgiveness, even if it is unforgivable." Part of Dominic's testimony answered accusations from his fellow defendants that he had, according to one of the lawyers for the accused, totally duped, fooled, tricked, and trapped those who participated in the rapes. He then would go on to state, "Today, I maintain that I am a rapist, like those in this room. They all knew her condition before they came. They knew everything. They cannot say otherwise. They asked me. I said yes. I didn't put anyone in handcuffs to bring them here." He also added that the obligations he placed on them, in addition to those mentioned above, he asked them to bring test results and condoms, but said he still let it happen when they neglected the latter, left no doubt as to Gisèle's state. Dominic reportedly also recalled experiencing abuse in his youth, saying he was sexually assaulted at age 9 and forced to watch a rape at age 14. He would go on to say, "From my childhood, I remember only shock and trauma." He then also indicated that it was Gisèle who lifted him out of it, and that he was happy with her throughout their marriage. "I'm crazy about her," he said. "Even if it's paradoxical, I never thought of my wife as an object." Observing that a person isn't born perverted, they become perverted. Dominic also addressed the footage he filmed of the rapes, saying they were part pleasure and part insurance. As to why he labeled them meticulously, he told the judges it was perversion, vice, but it was also an outstanding means of helping me remember certain people, he explained. Because of his recordings, he claimed we could find all of those who participated. AKA, he was not going down alone. While Dominic did not refute the allegations that he abused his wife, he did deny drugging or raping his daughter, and he denied ever having inappropriately touching his grandchildren. He said that because of his past trauma, he could never picture inflicting that pain on a child. As testimony came to an end in November, Dominic addressed the court one last time. He blamed the sexual violence he allegedly suffered in his youth, saying it created a crack in his personality that never closed. His fantasy, he explained, was to subdue an unruly woman, but without making her suffer. He would later admit it was selfish. Nonetheless, he emphasized these other men were part of the plan. They voluntarily accepted what I proposed. Without me, they wouldn't be here. And without them, I would not be here, he states. For the most part, the men who testified claimed that Dominic lured them to his home under false pretenses, and that they couldn't have raped Gisèle because they had no idea she did not consent. While several have acknowledged that their actions qualified as rape, they largely maintained that any blame should lie with Dominic and Dominic alone. If I had not met Mr. Pelicot, I would have never committed this act. He was reassuring, like a cousin, one of the first men to testify stated. And this was the same man who allegedly copied Dominic's actions on his own wife. Another of the men recalled, remarking that Gisèle must be dead. She was so unresponsive. Nonetheless, he continued to assault her for the next half hour, and then began to insist he is not a rapist, that is too much for him to bear. It's her husband. I never thought that guy could do that to his own wife. A number of other men claimed they thought Dominic and Gisèle were engaged in a sex game and role-playing a sort of fantasy. They stated that the fantasy is why they didn't ask questions. They had this idea of a promiscuous couple where the wife might be asleep, perhaps because she was a shy person. Another of the men testified, even though Gisèle's unresponsive state suggested to him that something was wrong, he performed oral sex on her. Indeed, he only left when Dominic shooed him out, because Gisèle appeared to react. When he came back, I told him I did not want to be there. They named him Jequez C. And as he was leaving, he said he thought about reporting the incident, but then life resumed its course. The next day, he went to work very early, and that was that. Could you imagine, this happening to you and, just going to work as usual? These men are all these men just seem psychotic to me. This is not normal behavior to say that you questioned if she was even alive, and I went to work early. Next. Disgusting. At the same time, Gisèle herself points out that none of them made an effort to confirm that she had consented. Gisèle states, "I have been called an alcoholic, a conspirator of Mr. Pelicot. In the state I was in, I absolutely could not respond. I was in a comatose state. The videos show that." As the first of her alleged abusers took the stand, Gisèle told the court that she felt humiliated by the process. "Rape is rape," she said. "These degenerates could have checked with her," she noted. "They didn't. When they see a woman sleeping on her bed, no one thought to ask themselves the questions. Don't they have brains? When does a husband decide for his wife?" Yes, Gisèle, say it. When does a husband decide for his wife? The answer is never. Depending on the instance, but you get what I'm putting down here. So, about halfway through the trial, Gisèle gave a second round of testimony, hitting back at the idea repeated by character witnesses throughout the trial that the accused are upstanding men of whom her ex-husband had taken advantage. Before police alerted her to her husband's crimes, she had believed him to be the perfect man. She states, "So many times I said to myself, how lucky am I to have you at my side? For me, he was someone I trusted. I wouldn't have stayed 50 years if he had behaved like a violent brute. I would never have imagined a man could do this. The profile of a rapist is not someone met in a car park late at night. A rapist can also be in the family, among friends." Gisèle spoke out about her ex-husband's method and how he was able to keep it from her. The answer appeared to boil down to trust. "Often, when there's a football match on TV, I'd let him watch alone," she testified. "He brought my ice cream to bed where I was, my favorite flavor, raspberry. And I thought, how lucky I am. I'm in love." Gisèle would have the ice cream and not notice the drug's effects. "I never felt my heart flutter. I didn't feel anything. I must have gone under very quickly. I would wake up with my pajamas on. The mornings, I must have been more tired than usual. And that was that." Though she wasn't able to look at him, she did address him herself, asking, "How could you betray me to this extent? Bring these strangers into our bedroom? For me, this betrayal is immeasurable. I'm a woman totally destroyed." She would later testify that her goal was not to express her anger nor her hatred, but her determination to change society. "I hear people say, 'You have so much courage,' but it's not courage," she says. "What propels her is her desire to move society forward on the question of rape. I want to because I have all these women and all these men behind me, helping me to continue this fight, because it's not just mine. It's the fight of all rape victims. Similarly, she explained she wanted an open trial so that all women victims of rape can tell themselves, Madame Pelicot did it, so can I. I don't want them to be ashamed. It's not us who should feel ashamed, but them. In her final statements, Gisèle said she had witnessed the trial of cowardice. Since the beginning, I have heard things that are unacceptable, she states. I saw on parade those who deny rape, those who talk about it as banal. She addressed herself to those men in particular. When you entered the room, at what moment did Madame Pelicot give you consent? Faced with this inert body, at what moment do you become conscious? At what moment are you not going to the police? Gisèle also had to answer questions from various defense attorneys. But in admitted rape, is it less serious? One, Karine Monza, asked per France Bleu. I won't respond to that question. It is indecent, Gisèle answered. Instead, she spoke to an idea. Several of the defense attorneys brought up that she remained under Dominique's very strong influence. As attorney Nadia El-Bourumi put it, you don't stay under the influence for 50 years, she stated. But he never forbade me from doing anything. I did what I wanted. I couldn't detect anything abnormal about him. Questioned on why she seemed able to reserve some sympathy for Dominique, why she didn't seem angrier with him. So Dominique's lawyers were basically saying, you weren't really being raped. How could you have been under these drugs for this long and stayed with this man so long? It's not true. And then it's almost like they're taunting her by asking, why are you not more angry? Gisèle said she hadn't forgiven him, but returned to his 50 co-defendants. They could have had my death on their conscience, she said. They really came to satisfy their sexual urges. Yes, I'm angry with these individuals. They could have stopped. Not a single one went to the police. And that really raises questions. Speaking about the version of herself displayed for the court on these videos, she added, she isn't sleeping. This woman, she's unconscious. And in these court documents, you'll see that Gisèle constantly refers to herself in third person. And this is a very big thing in those who have endured trauma like this. They almost detach themselves from that person. And I think that's why Gisèle had such strength amongst wanting to speak for all those who are victims. She really was trying to use herself as an example that these actions need to be brought forward so that there's no more shame. And this woman is just a badass lady. I loved listening to this lady, and I loved reading her point of view. If you are a victim of trauma and you stayed for this video, I do highly recommend just looking into this and reading the things that she says about rape and being a survivor. She is just a very beautiful, strong woman, and I couldn't imagine walking in her shoes. But anyway, speaking on Gisèle's behalf, her attorney reminded the court why his client wanted to air these crimes in public, to trigger deep reflection. And they go more into detail with that, but I think I pretty much covered that with what I just said. Gisèle's second lawyer criticized the ways in which the defense had tried to explain or minimize their client's actions, even in the face of all that proof. They had all this on video. They had meticulous folders that he had labeled and organized his crimes and actions. That takes thought, premeditation, that takes all this time of you watching your actions, and these defense lawyers try to minimize that. They explain it as an accidental rape, an involuntary rape, an altruistic rape, or even now an irresponsible rape. Gisèle's defense was in hopes that this trial would change the idea anchored in the male imagination that a woman's body is an object of conquest. On the morning of December 19th, Chief Judge Roger Arata read out the verdicts and sentences over the course of an hour. The Associated Press reports Dominique, who received the maximum sentence for his crimes, cried as the decisions came in. His lawyer said he has not yet decided if he will appeal. The judges found 46 of his 50 co-defendants guilty of rape, 2 of attempted rape, and 2 of sexual assault. Their sentences ranged between 3 and 15 years in prison. Those 6 men who received suspended sentences thanks to health problems and time already served walked free. Hassan Ouammou, currently on the run from French authorities in Morocco, was tried in absentia and sentenced to 12 years in prison. According to the New York Times, Jean-Pierre Marical, who replicated Dominique's operation on his own wife, was sentenced to 12 years in prison and has no plans to appeal. Charlie Arbo, who nearly attempted the scheme on his own mother and who visited the Pelicots' home 6 times, was sentenced to 13 years. Romain Van de Velde, who also made 6 trips to the Pelicot home, who never wore a condom despite his HIV status, which was positive but suppressed, was sentenced to 15 years. Given that most sentences fell below the minimums prosecutors requested, the Pelicot children felt disappointed by the court's leniency. An unnamed family member told reporters. All of the men convicted now have 10 days in which to file any appeals. As Arata read out the verdicts, the woman at the trial's center reportedly rested her head against the courtroom wall. When she walked out of the building, a crowd of cheering supporters greeted her, shouting "Merci, Gisèle." She then read prepared remarks, calling the trial a very difficult ordeal, and thanking all the people who supported her and had given her the strength to come back every day. She states, "I think of the unrecognized victims whose stories often remain in the shadows. I want you to know that we share the same fight. I wanted, by opening the doors of this trial on September 2nd, that society could take hold of the debates that took place there. I have never regretted this decision. I now have confidence in our ability to collectively seize a future in which each woman and man can live in harmony with respect and mutual understanding. So, that is today's video on Gisèle Pelicot. I tried to include as much of her words as I could, because to me this woman is she is a visionary. She is someone that I think should be spoke about more. I think that we will hear more about her, and if we don't, I will be severely disappointed, because this amount of strength and confidence that justice will persevere, and that she, unknowing of how this court case would unfold, she wanted it for the whole world to see. She wanted to change society with this case and bring it forward for you, me, and everyone to know that these things happen, and it can be the ones that are closest to you that are committing these crimes, and to not count them out as much as we would like to. I think with these kinds of crimes that are committed in families, I think they get really just swept under the rug, because we are taught that these are our family, we love them, and we are supposed to forgive them. It's just a common thing. I've personally experienced it with family members. I've heard it from peers. This is a common thing where people are almost ashamed to let their family or those that they love, their friends, whoever, reap what they sow and finally face the consequences. And I'm just glad that Gisèle was able to do it. The fact that it was this many men, and she is not only scarred mentally, but she has so many sexually transmitted STDs that she is now having to bear. This is like a woman's worst nightmare. Like, this is something that is so disgusting, and I was getting very emotional with this case. It's disgusting, and I feel so bad for her. Could you imagine loving and being with somebody for 50 years, having children with them, and finding out he has folders labeled abuse, and the prime main character of all this is you? Videos, pictures, and then to find out that he has a folder labeled our daughter naked, and pictures of her as well. He has humiliated her in so many ways. And him saying that he loved her, he admired her, you never admired her. You saw her as an object, as something to have sex with, to ease your desires, your fantasies, without having any care of her. And what enrages me the most, he got 20 years in prison. 20 years. And he's the only one that got the maximum sentence. Let's just start there. This is just... And I know that they're older, so it's very likely that he will die in prison. He's 72 years old. I don't care. because this is so disgusting. But I'm glad that this was a story that was able to get out for others that needed that push to come forward. This was a heavy one, wasn't it? This was recommended. This is what you guys asked for, and I hope I gave it to you in the best format that I could. This was a very heavy case that I tried to steer in the right direction and focus on Gisèle, because she is not only a victim, but she is our main character. She is. She was cast aside for so long by her husband, and she deserves to be the main character now. She deserves to be glorified. She deserves to be admired and loved in the correct ways. And I feel so strongly about this. I do. But before we go on to an even further rant, I could rant for days with you guys. I hope you found today's video relaxing and informative. If you have recommendations for future videos or future triggers featured in these videos, please let me know in the comments below. Please, feasible triggers. I am one person and I am reading. It's a lot for me. I am a multitasker, but be mindful. Be mindful. Be very demure for me, please. Thank you so much for watching. If you are a victim of these acts, just know that you are not alone. We are here with you, and we see you, we hear you, and we love you. We do. You are not alone. That's what these men try to make you feel by doing these acts, and you are not alone. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, spooky dreams.